All right, welcome to Halitics. I'm Hal Ginsberg, and I was just fumbling around there trying to make sure I could see your comments, your chat remarks during the program, which I appreciate those who do comment. Usually it's Shade, and he's already started. He's already got the ball rolling. You want AOC to disassociate herself from the Dems. This only get heard by the Green Party. Well, my criticism of AOC is not that she's a Democrat. My criticism of AOC is that she doesn't take on the Democratic Party. My criticism of her is similar to that of Jamie Raskin, that they are basically water carriers for the establishment in the party. If they were fighting against the billionaire class that controls the Democratic Party no less than it controls the Republican Party, if they were fighting against, meaning AOC and Raskin, they were fighting against the warmongers and the fossil fuel producers and Wall Street, and said, this is wrong. These people have taken away from working people the Democratic Party and have turned it into another malefactor of great wealth, then I would support her. But my problem is that she has been corrupted, if indeed she was not corrupt to begin with. And I believe she wasn't. I think she ran for Congress with the best of intentions. I don't think she was a phony, but you know, power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So she's got a lot of influence, or some now, and to me, it's like you don't really have it, right? I mean, it feels like you do, and you get elected, and you can vote, and you're on TV. But if you're just doing what the elites want you to do, then do you really have power? By the way, I keep looking to this one side. I think it has to do with there's some weird thing about the way the camera works, so I find that very frustrating. Also, Shade, thanks for the comment about the audio. I did turn it down a little bit. Hopefully you won't find that clipping problem. I think it was an artifact, by the way, of the live stream, and once it was posted and processed by YouTube, meaning yesterday's video, it should be fine. I did listen yesterday. I didn't notice any problems, but if you do, that was, of course, after the fact. I can't listen during the stream, obviously. I'd hear myself, and it would drive me absolutely insane. I mean, hearing myself drives me insane anyway. My problem with AOC is that she is not outspoken against Israel's genocidal acts, and she's not the worst. I want to be real honest. You know, look, I criticize her. That's not what you should be seeing. I criticize her, but even I get it. There are much, much worse. But she kind of sets along with Raskin and a few other quote progressives, they set the line in the sand as far left as you can go, and we'll talk about that. And right now, her making nicey nice with Zionists and with her decrying anti-Semitism, which, as you know, you can get a magnifying glass and start looking really, really closely, and you're not going to see any. At least as far as I don't see it. I hear all this talk about all this anti-Semitism. I'm Jewish. I'm more than willing to believe there's anti-Semitism. I have spoken out against it. There was this professor, Stephen Salida, who was pro-Palestine, and he said some things about Israelis and sort of taking a kind of a joyful bloodlust in the killing of Palestinians. I thought at the time was over the top. I thought he went too far. I thought it was kind of trafficking in anti-Semitic tropes, and I said that about that. But I think we've now seen the Israeli society has gone to that extreme where they are taking joy, they're taking delight in the killing of Palestinians. Now, not everyone, but they're not speaking out against it. You know, I never bought into that Ibram X. Kendi formulation that either you're a racist or an anti-racist. You can't be in the middle if you're not speaking out every time you see anything. Anytime you see a microaggression or what might be a microaggression, you have to speak out against it. I don't agree with that. I think that, you know, we can have different views of how to address injustices in America, that not every situation involving an African-American and a white person that doesn't work out in a way that we might desire is necessarily racist, and that there are ways of addressing it that don't involve calling out people as bigots and hateful. I believe all that. But I do think we're at a point now when it comes to Israel that if you support, quote, Israel, if you say, I support Israel, you are supporting genocide. Israel is a genocidal state right now. And so if you want to complain about Hamas flags, I don't know how you can wave an Israeli flag. If you think that the Hamas flag is anti-Semitic because it shows support for what happened on October 7, then how can you possibly justify, if you do, flying an Israeli flag? I don't see it. Call in if you disagree. Call in if you do agree. 240-242-5646. This is from today. A UN inquiry says the immense scale of Gaza killings, what is it? It's close to 2% now. 38,000 identified dead. The number just keeps jumping up and up and up. Israel just keeps killing. It's an orgy. It's a spasm of violence, which the Israeli people are completely supportive of. As far as I can tell, they may not like Netanyahu. They may not like the way this, quote, war, unquote, this killing, the atrocities are being conducted. But the stories I've read coming from Israel, there's not any real empathy or sympathy for the victims. The real victims, the Palestinian people. Crime against humanity. 250 days of Israeli war on Gaza. And that's the right way to phrase it. It's a war on Gaza. It's not a war with Hamas. Hamas isn't an advanced country or even a relatively unadvanced country or a developing country or a third world country. It's an authority. 250 days of the war on Gaza by Israel. 15,694 children killed, 70,000 more orphaned. This is the tragedy. This is the horror. This is the atrocity that's happening right now. This is what people of good faith, this is what we need to be speaking out against. There's nothing else. Well, what else is there that we can talk about that approaches this in terms of the inhumanity, the cruelty? They're just refugees. It looks like the people fleeing from the Nazis, doesn't it? So AOC on her reacting to this, to what was it, 284 Gazans kill. Israel kills 284 Gazans on Saturday. And AOC's response, well, I guess it was just before, her anticipatory response to all the violence that we have been seeing from Israel is to speak out against anti-Semitism. It's so, look, if this was a problem, okay, so after, and I was thinking a lot about this because trying to come up with some parallels in American history. In the United States, in December 7th, 1941, the country of Japan, the Empire of Japan, attacked us, right? It was unprovoked. They sent planes to Pearl Harbor and attacked us, bombed us. And the response, beyond a declaration of war, was that we were going to round up Japanese people and put them in camps. And that was horrible. It was wrong. It was incredibly racist, cruel. So the response was to punish people who had nothing to do with the attack on us. And so I'm like, well, is this, are Jews now being attacked just like, it's hard to even understand because the Muslims, or Hamas, which I guess is mostly Muslim or 100% Muslim, attacked Israel. It's true. They killed a lot of Israelis on October 7. And the response in this country has apparently been to attack Muslims, right? Well, there were some Muslims who were involved in October 7. They were not attacking Israel because there were a lot of Jews there. They're attacking because it's the Jewish state that is oppressing Palestine, that is persecuting Palestine, that has been now, engaged in ethnic cleansing for a long time and is now committing genocide against Palestinians. But yes, there was an attack on Israel by some Muslims who come from Palestine who are Hamas militants. And the response was from us kind of like what happened when Japan attacked us. We're going to go treat people really badly who are Japanese. So there's been no anti-Semitism. We haven't seen it. I know we hear a lot about it, but it hasn't happened. Where's the evidence of it? So AOC and New York have this Nova festival there, like to commemorate the Nova festival in Israel where the Hamas militants attacked back on October 7. And they did kill, like 1,100 people, something like that. By the way, no mass rapes. Rape wasn't weaponized. The Times of London has now come out with an expose or an in-depth investigation where they've concluded there's no evidence. This is something I've been talking about over and over. No forensic evidence, no witness statements, no testimony, nothing that corroborates any claims of sexual violence by Hamas on October 7. So on October 7, a lot of murders. A lot of people were killed by Hamas. Terrible. That's what this event was, October 7. So you want to commemorate it? Commemorate it. I think in the midst of a genocide against the Palestinian people, I wouldn't present this as an example of the brutality of Hamas. I would present this as part of an ongoing genocide by Israel, an ongoing ethnic cleansing, an ongoing persecution, oppression, and how in the face of that kind of treatment, people will lash out and respond violently and aggressively. And people who don't deserve to be killed will be killed, because that's what happened. And that's what this October 7 should be about, not about how evil Hamas is. But a lot of it was about how evil Hamas is. We're victims. We Jews are victims. That's what this event is all about. How the Jewish people, the poor, put upon Jewish people who, I think, a higher percentage of billionaires in the world are Jewish than of any other religion by a pretty significant margin. So you want to call me anti-Semitic for pointing that fact out? Go ahead. What I'm saying is Jews are not victims. Some Jewish people are not doing well. Some Jewish people need help. Some Jewish people need to be supported. Some Jewish people are victims. But the Jewish people are not victims. The Palestinian people are victims. And I'm sick of this rewriting history, this cult of victimization. And AOC feeding right into this, 100%. So she goes here and she tweets back on June 11. So June 11, which I guess if I do my math, that's yesterday. There it is, yeah. So this is after that brutal, violent day where Israel kills 274 Palestinians, mostly just innocent refugees, innocent victims of Israel. They now kill them to rescue 4 hostages. And I had, by the way, wrongly said that when Shade brought up, I believe it was Shade, the fact that that Israel had killed hostages along with rescuing some, I said, no, that was a different event. And they did. They had earlier killed 4 hostages, but I believe there also reports that they killed some hostages during the, quote, rescue, unquote, attempt. So after we see all the brutality by Israel, thousands of people killed in a week, over 1,000 killed in a week, AOC decides to tweet out, the callousness, dehumanization, and targeting of Jews on display at last night's protest outside the Nova was atrocious. Anti-Semitism, there it is. This is anti-Semitic. So what happened? What happened? Was it? I mean, if it was, right? We don't pretend, we don't act like it's not anti-Semitic if it is. And anti-Semitism does. I'm not saying it doesn't exist. It's there. There is anti-Semitism. Was it on display? Did we see it? Did others see it? I know Mayor Eric Adams, I mean, the fact that there's several million, 2.5 million Jews in New York City, something like, maybe it's not that many. It is though. Could it be that many? I don't know. I have to look it up. A lot of Jews in New York City. Could that be why Eric Adams positions himself as a defender of the Jewish people who are the terrible victims? I don't know. I'm not saying it's all those votes matter. Maybe it's the donations he wants to see keep coming. The campaign donations. I really don't know. But there you go. So there's the protesters where there was all the hate against Jews allegedly. There it is. The demonstrators holding a rally in support of Palestine outside the Nova Music Festival. So where's the anti-Semitism? I kind of put, well, let me, before we get to, we'll blow up some of those, you can see the little stickers there. So the question I'm getting is, I had was, well, what do those stickers say? Because people are saying there's all this anti-Semitism. I want to know the evidence. I don't just accept word. People say, oh, there's all this hate. Well, okay. What's your evidence of it? I'm not, because you calling something anti-Semitic has a function, right? It has a function. Now, the function might be because Jews are victims and we need to protect everyone, and no one should be targeted really for any reason, but they certainly shouldn't be targeted based on their religion or some other innate characteristic. That's terrible. So we should speak out against it. Adams, I just mentioned, pure anti-Semitism. And what is the examples? You cannot stand next to waving Hamas and Hezbollah flags, especially an exhibit commemorating the victims of the Nova Festival massacre. So my answer to that is, can you stand next to an Israeli flag? Because the Israeli military's killed 37.5 thousand Gazans conservatively. And I know we don't know the exact number. We can't be certain because there are a lot of bodies under rubble, and there are people who disappeared, and maybe they're dead, or maybe they're just off the grid and we can't find them. So we don't know exactly how many people are dead as a result of Israeli action, as a result of what the Israeli military has done. But we can be pretty sure it's north of 37,500, and that's Israel. So can you wave a Israeli flag, or is that pure Islamophobia? I'd say there's a hell of a stronger argument, Adams, that waving that Israeli flag is the hate speech, not standing next to a Hamas flag. And then again, not just Adams weighing in. I mean, this is the whole, all the luminaries, all joining in. White House condemned the demonstration, calling it outrageous and heartbreaking. Okay, so what were the words? What was said? I blew it up so you could see. Here's a slide. Some of the words that were outrageous, heartbreaking, hateful. From the U.S. to Palestine, abolish the settler state. Okay? Doesn't sound anti-Semitic. You may not agree with it. You may not like it. There's nothing there about Jews. They don't use the word Jew. There's no slur against Jews. Nobody's calling for Jews to be killed. You say abolish the state. That doesn't mean you kill everyone who lives there. Zionism is terrorism. Well, we're seeing that, aren't we, right now? Zionism meaning the belief in the Jewish state of Israel, that the state of Israel should be, as it is, controlled by Jews, a Jewish country, a Jewish homeland for nobody else. So again, they're not saying being Jewish is you're a Jews or terrorists. From the U.S. to Palestine, abolish the settlers, we already saw that. Resist colonial power by any means necessary. Doesn't sound anti-Semitic to me. Every time media lies, a neighborhood in Gaza dies. Again, doesn't sound anti-Semitic. I want to see you want to call something anti-Semitic, I want to see the cause to kill Jews. I want to see the cause to exclude Jews. I want to see the cause to push Jews into the desert. I mean, I don't really want to see it, but if I see that, I'll say, you're right, that's anti-Semitic. Words mean something. Anti-Semitism means you hate Jews. You believe Jews are somehow, some way deserving of less, deserve to be third-class citizens, to be pushed around, to be kept down. That's what anti-Semitism means. We're not seeing that. Yes, we're seeing anti-Zionism, the belief that there should be a Jewish state, a Jewish homeland, and specifically now in Israel, where it is. We're seeing that, no argument. It's not anti-Semitism. So you saw that tweet, really wrong-headed, misguided tweet. And you have to sort of say, well, why is she doing this, right? Why would AOC? What is she getting? I mean, I have to wonder. She's not the worst. I'm going to play, look, this is a kind of an anti-AOC program, not all of it, some of it. We're also going to get into foreign policy and why our foreign policy is terrible. But we just saw some of the signs, the display outside the festival. She's saying it's atrocious anti-Semitism, plain and simple. So again, I don't see it. I didn't see anything. Maybe I missed it. Maybe I'm missing something that's there, or I'm not seeing something that is there. Here is a kind of a better example, I think, of hate speech, right? Of singling out a group, targeting it. And this is at the Nova Festival, right? So Max Blumenthal responding to AOC. And he kind of explains, I'll blow that up so you can read some of the hate speech there. He responds to her tweet about anti-Semitism, pure and simple, AOC's words. And he explains why. We know you're not allowed to do it. But it's still worth noting you have nothing to say about the open calls for the genocide of Palestinians and Muslims posted inside the exhibit. You're always quick to condemn anti-Zionists, though. So he's right. He nails it. I'll get to those specifics, the images in a moment. I'm more curious, though, about where Blumenthal says, or at this moment, and I want to talk to you, 240-242-5646. Also, by the way, please, yes, I'm going to say it. I'm going to say it. Please subscribe now. Please. There you go. There's the subscribe button. So Blumenthal says you're not allowed to say it. That's his explanation. Is she really not allowed to say it? What's that? Because, you know, I said you have some power, right? She has health care now. It's better, a lot better, if you're a U.S. Congress member than if you're most other things. Not any other thing, but most other things. And you probably feel like, maybe you do, you have some power. But in the end, if she's not allowed to say certain things, how much power does she really have? And if you get an opportunity to meet AOC and talk to her and bask in her aura, but she can't do, you want her to do certain things. You want her to speak out against the Israeli genocide in Gaza. You want her to take concrete action. You don't want her to be campaigning for Joe Biden, for example. She's not going to do what you want. So even though you have access, it doesn't mean anything for you. And two, apparently, according to Max Blumenthal, she has to do what she's doing now anyway. So she really has little or no power. I don't quite buy it. And he's being facetious. He's being sarcastic, obviously. He's saying you're taking orders from the Democratic elite. You're taking orders from Hakeem Jeffries, who in turn is taking orders, by the way, from AIPAC and from the billionaire class, the donor class, the Bill Ackmans from Harvard. So what kind of democracy do we have in the end? What do those, we heard that, flying the flag, the Hamas flag, is anti-Semitism. Apparently flying his pro-Israel flag isn't. Look, I want to just say something else here. It's rude. I'll say it that way. It was rude for the pro-Palestinian people to protest outside the Nova Festival. It really was. To fly Hamas flags. I mean, Hamas did commit the crime. They did commit the murders on October 7th. So it's rude. It's in your face. It's obnoxious. I get it. But isn't that what we call free speech in this country? And in the end, aren't they the real victims? Not Israel. The real victims are the Gazans. So AOC decrying flags, decrying a call for Israel, to no longer be a state, calling all that anti-Semitism, saying nothing about this. Our unity will let us heal. The Gazans are all Amalek. They should be wiped off the face of the earth. There's nothing about how the Jews should be wiped off the face of the earth, or even that the Israelis should be wiped off the face of the earth. But the people of Gaza, no, they need to go. That's hate speech. I don't think Islamophobia is strong enough. It's just pure hate speech. May God avenge their blood. That's what the people that AOC is siding with are saying, who she's not calling out for being hateful, for calling for murder. Hard to read. I'm struck by the hope and beauty of the will to survive and filled with shame and embarrassment that Muslim people are our cousins. These are human beings. Shame and embarrassment. I can't comprehend an Allah who is proud of his children and Muhammad's descendant. May the love of life of the something of Israel overcome the evil of, I think that's the rabble. I had a lot of trouble. The evil of Gaza? Something. That one was hard for me to figure out. Probably shouldn't have put it up there. But I wanted you to see everything that Max put up. And then finally, one more. Treat them as they treat us. That is the language they understand. So, eye for an eye, kill them. That's the people that were being victimized, according to AOC. One's calling for that treatment of an oppressed, persecuted people. I saw this. I was really intrigued by this comment. This was by someone on Facebook. They posted this meme here. And it was in response. I don't think it was actually in response to. And AOC did a video. We'll show some of that. She did a little town hall with some Zionists about anti-Semitism and how awful it is and how painful it is and how horrible it is. But I just want to show you this meme in advance, and maybe we'll play a little video too. And I looked this up. I wanted to confirm this is what was said. Anti-Semitic. It's a trick. We always use it to stifle legitimate criticism of Jews in Israel. I was asked on Facebook when I posted criticism of AOC doing her little town hall there with the two ladies, one from the Holocaust Museum and the other from another Jewish group. And I criticized her for it. I said, what's the matter with her? Why? And the question, why did I put it up? Because that's not the problem. The problem isn't anti-Semitism. The problem is that Israel is committing genocide in Gaza. Now, there could be two problems, right? There could be two. But the alleged problem of anti-Semitism, it's not just that it isn't even there. It's being used to distract us or to even justify what Israel's doing. That's why what AOC is doing is wrong. Because she's providing support. She's providing something else for you to think about that might make you think, well, these are the people who are so upset about what Israel's doing in Gaza, they're anti-Semites. So we can't believe what they're saying. We can't believe their complaints. They don't believe women. Anything to personalize those critical of Israel in a negative light, to make them look bad. That's why what AOC did is so wrong. All right, let me play a little bit of this video here from the former prime minister. So she was a big shot. I never heard of this woman, Shulamit Aloni. I guess that's really on me. I should know who Shulamit Aloni is. Here she's on with Amy Goodman. Yeah, I have the 350 there. I just want to make sure I have the right timing on this thing. So let's see if we can get it to work correctly.
Is a voice of criticism we don't often hear in the United States. Often when there is dissent expressed in the United States against policies of the Israeli government, people here are called anti-Semitic. What is your response to that as an Israeli Jew?
Well, it's a trick. We always use it. When from Europe somebody is criticizing Israel, then we bring up the Holocaust. When in this country people are criticizing Israel, then they are anti-Semitic. And the organization is strong and has a lot of money, and the ties between Israel and the American Jewish establishment are very strong, and they are strong in this country. As you know, they have power, which it's okay. They are talented people, and they have power, money, and media, and other things. And their attitude is Israel, my country, right or wrong, the identification. And they are not ready to hear criticism. And
so there it is. I mean, it's just that simple. So when you hear complaints of anti-Semitism, not saying you should reject them all out of hand, what specifically happened? What is the action? What is the activity? What is the event that is deemed anti-Semitic? Is there a hidden agenda or not so hidden agenda by the people screaming that's anti-Semitism? Those are the questions you got to ask. Not just simply accept. You know, when people who have a real interest in avoiding criticism and trying to prevent you from thinking about what Israel's doing, when they start complaining about anti-Semitism. So as Shulamit said, former prime minister, it's a trick. It's the technique. It's hasbara, propaganda. So Michael Tracy, who I think is an outstanding, really good journalist, who doesn't get nearly the credit he should for some of his stories, he posts, AOC just did a bizarre hostage-style video where she denounced the scourge of anti-Semitism in progressive spaces, and saying that these aren't even progressives. She's an ADL official to Stacey Burdett. And I'll play some of that video. I don't have all of it. I don't really feel like spending too much time, well, I'll spend enough time, but it's depressing, right? I mean, I want to just say doing these programs really depresses me. We don't have I want to say I don't feel like there are any allies that I have really anywhere in terms of the views that I express. Bernie's not an ally. Who out there is truly supporting justice for everyone? And I'm real clear what that means too. Everyone has enough. No one has too much. You don't have to use those words. But who out there is talking about a real realignment of society? We hear things like, well, we need DEI. But what DEI is, diversity, equity, inclusion, it's not about guaranteeing everyone enough and no one too much. It's finding discrete groups based on innate characteristics and trying to level the field between groups, not within all of us, not saying everyone. And why do leaders in DEI do that? Because they don't really want a level playing field. They want more than you. They want to have more than you have. They want to have more than if they're whatever they are, trans or black or Jewish or whatever the hell they are. They want more than you have. Because that's what we all want as people. But I'm saying we can't, that just ain't working anymore. We've got to evolve beyond, for me, for my family, for my cousin, for my village, for my region. We got to evolve on that. We got to say, no, we all have enough. We don't all have the same, but we all have enough. Let me see if I can get this video up for you. Always struggle with that. So AOC, yeah. So here she is in this little town hall she put together. Get you that up in just a second. Here we go. So here's let's see if I'm not hearing her.
Values as Americans and especially as progressives. Anti-Semitism is also a threat to a community that is a vital partner in our struggles against injustice. So when the Jewish community is threatened, the progressive movement is undermined. That's why it is so important that we reject it as fiercely as we reject and look for misogyny, Islamophobia, or any form of bigotry or discrimination in any space.
All right, so I want to stop that for a second. So she says, anti-Semitism is such a big is a problem and it undermines the progressive movement. And then she says, she doesn't identify any. They do talk a little bit about what they call examples of anti-Semitism. I don't know how much we'll get into that because you can watch the video yourself. It's on X and it's long. There really aren't any. There's no specifics. They give a laundry list. I think at one point one of them says a Hillel group kicked off campus. I didn't find any example. I never saw a Hillel group anywhere. I did Google it. I was like, was there really a Hillel group kicked off campus somewhere? Maybe that would be anti-Semitic, right? It could be, for sure. It didn't happen. Not that I found. And they don't provide any, they don't say what college, they don't say where, they don't, what state, they don't say what date, what year, nothing. So I'm not going to buy it. But AOC also says, and she gives this laundry list, and let me play it again because I was a little bit of trouble getting this thing on.
The progressive movement is undermined. That's why it is so important that we reject it as fiercely as we reject and look for misogyny, Islamophobia, or any form of bigotry or discrimination in any space.
So I have a problem with what she just said. I don't think we should be constantly spending our time looking for misogyny and Islamophobia and racism all the time. I don't think so. I think we should assume in progressive spaces good faith. I think we should assume in progressive spaces that people who come together fighting for Medicare for all, fighting for higher taxes on the wealthy, fighting for guaranteed housing, fighting to stop fossil fuel production and consumption. I think we should assume that people who come together in those spaces are acting in good faith and aren't bigots and haters. I don't think we should be constantly looking to find evidence that one person thinks this way about me because of this. I think that's a really bad idea. Sure, there could be examples. Sure, it could happen. And I cop to it. I have my biases and my negative vibes about people. Yes, we all do that. But I don't think we should be engaging in these witch hunts. I think that's incredibly harmful to the progressive movement. And you're calling out purported, alleged anti-Semitism in progressive spaces is a way for us to look internally for enemies rather than to be united for good policies. Good friend Liz commenting, I'm certain she's afraid. Fear and seat security. Yes, prompt. Well, the thing about seat security, I would just comment and say, she's secure. She's going to get reelection. I know Jamal Bowman's in trouble. She ain't in any trouble, as far as I know. She won her primary. Or no, she's not. She's running unopposed, right? Because they haven't had the New York one yet, because Bowman is in New York too. She's running unopposed. Let me play a little more from this, though. Again, this idea that we all have to be looking out for our little tribe, and is there someone in our bigger progressive, under our big progressive tent, who may not be fully aligned with us? That's so harmful to the progressive movement
that we occupy. Right now, anti-Semitism is on the rise in America and across the world.
All right, I hear that a lot. I want to know what the evidence is. What do you define as an anti-Semitic event, right? When you say anti-Semitism is on the rise, I think you mean there are more anti-Semitic events. Okay, define one. Define them. Because I showed a sign outside a synagogue that was defaced. I don't think it's anti-Semitic. I don't think the defacement was anti-Semitic. It was vandalism, wasn't anti-Semitic. I'm pretty sure that's characterized or considered an anti-Semitic event. So what do you call anti-Semitic, AOC?
Acknowledging that fact does not take away from fights for liberation.
Well, actually, it kind of sort of does. Because if you start saying, well, there's all this anti-Semitism in it, then you're kind of saying, let's not worry so much about the Palestinian people who are being bombed and shot and rounded up and pushed into refugee camps and starved. That's not a thing we're worrying about. We're worrying about anti-Semitism and ism, which is poorly defined. And if you're going to start worrying in our spaces, we got to root it out. And start, well, if someone condemns what Israel's doing, are they really and truly motivated by concern for the Palestinians, or are they really concerned because they hate Jews?
It actually advances them. And the growth of anti-Semitic attacks and rhetoric before and since October 7th is unacceptable to all of us who believe in a better world.
So it's a lot of boilerplate without any substance.
Period.
What's harder for us as progressives to recognize or understand is when anti-Semitism shows up and is normalized in our own spaces. And I want to be frank here. There is very real anti-Semitism that is in fact showing up in progressive spaces right now. And it's deeply painful and hurtful to Jews. And
I just will, again, this is a short video. These are snippets. She does identify a few. I think I may show you. Maybe I'll be, no, I don't know. Again, Hillel being banned from campus was the one that struck me. I guess she says cheering on Hamas. She mentions cheering on Hamas. I'm like, that's not anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism is when you're specifically calling for Jewish people to be killed. She refers to October 7 as the deadliest day for Jews since the Holocaust. Okay. But they were killed because they were Israelis. And some of the victims on October 7 who were at that music festival, the Nova Festival, weren't Jewish. Some were Christian. Some were Muslim. They were killed right along. The target was not Jewish people. It was Israel. They're not the same.
I want to just mention a couple of pain points.
So this woman is former ADL, Anti-Defamation League, and now with the Holocaust Museum, Stacey Burdett. And I thought it was interesting. A commenter made the point that the Holocaust Museum embraces the notion that criticism of Israel can be often viewed as anti-Semitic.
This moment, because if we can understand the harm some words do to other people, we can be attentive to preventing it, and that's a great beginning that will matter to a lot.
So I think harm that words do is important. But what I think is more important is harm that bombs do, guns do, sticks do. We saw the Jewish counter-protesters at UCLA beating up the pro-Palestine protesters with sticks. That's a bigger problem. Words are a problem. Words can trigger violence, no question. Words are hurtful. But what's worse are either when the words trigger violence or the violence itself. And again, where's the beef? Where are your examples?
A lot of people. So I talked about the conspiracy frame. And so whenever we hear about nefarious control behind world events, or now we're talking about the conflict.
The conflict. I think she's referring to the war by Israel on Gaza. This kind of talk, by the way, that minimizes, diminishes the horror that Israel's committing, that is what is creating anti-Semitism. Because people really are going to start saying, what the F is the matter with these people? They present themselves as some kind of morally superior group, and they care about human beings, and they're compassionate, and they've been victims. And they just talk about, ongoing slaughter of the Palestinian people. They call it the conflict? Really? That's what creates anti-Semitism.
Evil control of government policy by Jewish billionaires or...
Well, okay, so Bill Ackman, who is a Jewish billionaire, was a major force behind the termination of Claudine Gay at Harvard. Now, I don't particularly like Claudine Gay, and I don't really give a crap that she was gone, but the fact is, it was a Jewish billionaire who really pushed that through. Sheryl Sandberg, I believe, is a Jewish billionaire. She put together a phony video about weaponized violence by Hamas. That wasn't true. So, if you really are concerned, and if you really want peace, you got to fight for justice. And to just simply sit there and tisk and complain and whine about how unfair these incredibly privileged people are being treated unfairly, that is going to create anti-Semitism. And people who shouldn't be targeted will be. Just like those festival goers shouldn't have been targeted, but they were.
Zionist donors, those are just like the George Soros accusations that Amy described. This evil puppet master, trying to save democracy and support causes he cares about. So if your criticism of Israel is trafficking and stereotypes, you're really in the bigotry zone. Stereotypes.
Well, I haven't heard that, by the way. I haven't heard people criticizing Israel based on stereotypes. I think what they're saying is Israel's a genocidal state that's murdering Palestinians both in Gaza and the West Bank. So I'm not aware of any of these stereotypes. But again, you know what? I'm really not big on all this constantly trying to root out and ferret out bigotry and let's find out what's really motivating them. Or that's one option. The other is, well, are they right? Do they have a just cause? Are they concerned with humanity?
Kill. That's how the Nazis got the German people to live with this so-called final solution. So we do the work all the time to avoid words that correlate with negative stereotypes. And we need to do that here.
I want to conclude by summarizing and saying that anti-Semitism is a threat to Jews and to the progressive movement, and as Amy has stated, to democratic freedom. And just like racism, anti-Black racism, Islamophobia, and misogyny, it makes all of us unsafe. And we all have a stake in fighting it. And it's not on Jews to address anti-Semitism on their own.
So let me just stop there. I've seen enough. Let me just make this point. All of these isms, there are two factors that we have to bear in mind. One is its human nature. We're tribal, right? That's why Jews all over the world celebrate the Israeli atrocities in Gaza. And that's why Palestinians, Muslims, were cheering on Hamas. Because we are tribal. That's part of being a human being. So you're railing against something that isn't going to change to a significant degree. That's baked into the human cake. But there are certain conditions under which hatred of the other really thrives. And those conditions are great inequality, as well as a real or imagined sense of being persecuted. So there are two, and we have to address those. So there's tremendous inequality. I mean, there just is. In this country, in Israel, there are some people who have everything, and in Gaza, they have nothing. So that tends to create hatred and bitterness on both sides. Understandably, on the Gazan side, why wouldn't they hate the people who are keeping them down and taking their land and living fat off the land while they have nothing, took their land from them? Of course they're going to hate them. The Israelis, you know, how do you justify what you're doing to another group of people? Well, they're not really human. They're not really special. They're not really deserving of fair treatment. So if AOC is really serious, and I see this so many times in progressive groups who center, whatever, alleged racism, bigotry, you know, when I say alleged, because they say, well, this is racism. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. The real answer in the end is to make sure we all have enough and no one has too much. All right, 240-242-5646. Now, I don't want to make this like AOC is some sort of horrible monster, because I don't really think she is. There are worse people out there. I thought this was a really... Let me play this. This is earlier this year, where AOC kind of you know, she's good. She does the right thing anyway. Let's put it that way. She really does. So let me see if I can get this for you. So this is on CNN, and they host some real right-wing guy. I don't know who it is, some pundit. And so she posts in response. And I think it's really interesting and instructive how AOC responds to this, because in some ways it's kind of good, but it also really does demonstrate her identity first brand of politics, which in the end is harmful, is wrong-headed. And I would say, yeah, seriously misguided. But here we go.
Oh, she's a Democrat. They're going to vote for Biden. I'm not...
So he's talking about, I believe, Ilhan Omar, and how Representative Omar from Minnesota, endorsed Biden.
Surprised about that. I am surprised that in the year of our Lord 2024, there is a public relations agent for Hamas sitting in the United States Congress.
So he attacks Omar because he calls her a public relations agent for Hamas. And AOC's response, and that is despicable. It's disgusting. Omar has criticized Israel, as has Rashida Tlaib, as to a degree, a lesser degree, has AOC. But then she says, how on earth is this kind of blatant Islamophobia so casually accepted without pushback? This is shocking. So, to be fair to AOC, she calls out anti-Semitism when she sees it, even if the rest of us don't see it, or we may see it, but we can't identify it. We can't be specific about what it is. But she also calls this out. She calls out this CNN guy who's obviously some sort of a Christian, the year of our Lord, whatever, what a bunch of crap that is. But she says, okay, well, you're attacking Omar for being critical of Israel, and you're saying she's an agent of Hamas, and that's Islamophobia. I don't, even there, I'm sure he is Islamophobic. I think you're clearly making an appeal to religion, but he's singling out Omar not because she's Muslim, but because she is critical of the policy that the United States is pursuing in support of Israel. That's why he's calling her an agent of Hamas. If she were a Muslim who didn't support Hamas, and there are plenty of them, by the way, let me tell you, I've talked to some, there are plenty who don't, for a variety of different reasons. Maybe they say, hey, Hamas is part of the problem, which I think they kind of are. And I don't even think, frankly, that Omar is so pro-Hamas. But she is critical of the U.S. policy towards Palestine and Israel. And is that Islamophobia that he's criticized? Is he criticizing her because she's Islamic, because she's Muslim? Or is he criticizing her because he disagrees with the policy she's calling for? I think it's a close call. I think it's fair to say he's being Islamophobic. But again, I'm much bigger a believer in criticizing people's positions, their views, express views, policy, rather than trying to figure out whether they're really bigots and haters. It's also interesting because her AOC goes after this guy for allegedly being a bigot, right? An Islamophobic, a hater. But a much more powerful critique I would have is, why is CNN having on this apologist for the, pro-Israel perspective? Why is CNN so willing to attack anyone, to allow clearly unfair attacks on politicians who take on American foreign policy? But she won't do that. She makes it about Muslims as the victims rather than about a media and government that are conspiring together to support war. She's really not prepared to take on the entire system, the entire dynamic that's so unjust, so destructive, so harmful to all of us. It's unfortunate, but that's AOC. That's why I'm not a fan. Not the worst. Glad she pointed that out. She has spoken out against our policy in support of Israel. She did vote against the $95 billion package, at least the section of it that included aid for Israel. But she did support also aid for Ukraine, which was wrong. And she also voted, I don't know if she did vote for Mike Johnson. Maybe she did. She certainly hasn't, rallied her her caucus, her little squad caucus there, against the Democratic elites. And that's a terrible, terrible problem. All right, it's been 2 hours I've been on, or no, 1 hour. I wanted to talk about the Stephen Wertheim piece, America Isn't Leading the World. I'll show you there's the, stop playing around with this stuff. Yeah, I wanted to talk about this today, but I will not, but I will tomorrow. America Isn't Leading the World. I thought this was a really, really strong, for the New York Times. It's not perfect. He doesn't go quite far enough in his critiques of Biden, but Wertheim does a pretty good job here. I'll get to it tomorrow. And in the meanwhile, I hope you have a great afternoon, or morning, I guess, if you're somewhere where it's morning. And I do hope, click like, click subscribe. Don't forget, that's how we keep doing this. You know, with Brianna Joy Gray off, at least off the Hill Rising, there aren't that many unabashed, unapologetic pro-Palestine voices out there. I know we had a call from Stephanie last week thanking me for how I am always here for the Palestinian people. And I think that has value. I mean, that's important to me. That's why I do this. I've said it over and over. That's why I center them, because they're the victims. And I think that's what we need more of. That's why I do it. So if you want more journalism, or if it's maybe not journalism, it's the wrong word. If you want more punditry, if you want more YouTube videos where we talk about, frankly, without mincing words, the great evil that's being done to Palestinians, then support my channel. Click subscribe, click like, and share. Thanks for everything. Call tomorrow. I'll be back then.